Well, good day everybody, this is Joe. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Hey, it's been a while, hasn't it? I've been working on my Afghan box camera, but before we get into that, let's talk about some of the other things going on. Stay tuned. Well, first of all, I've found myself doing a lot of sketching and writing and note-taking on this little homemade notebook that Ethan Moses and I put together. And I've been using this 3D printed ballpoint pen that Ethan made. So I'm taking a lot of notes. I'm making a lot of daily notes and doing all kinds of cool things, carrying this thing around. I found it really helpful when I'm designing, brainstorming ideas for upgrading my Afghan box camera and all that. And then I just find myself using this just as a basic note-taking tool for miscellaneous and daily stuff. And I haven't been doing as much writing and note-taking by hand in the last few months, and I'm really enjoying getting back to it. The other thing is, last week was my aunt's 90th birthday. She's the last remaining sibling of my dad's generation in our family, so we took a trip up to Colorado Springs and spent some time with her, and that was a lot of fun. I did not shoot any video, but she does have that Royal typewriter that I worked on a couple years ago, and she's really happy, and it works really good still. I was happy to hear about that. So that meant that last week I didn't make any videos. So this week I'm getting back into the Afghan box camera, and my box camera uses what you might call a custom film format. It's close to 4x5, but it's more like 4x4 5/8 or something like that. That was because when I made the whole film holder assembly, the way I made it, I could only do it at that size of film format. That's the only thing that worked out. And so I've decided that I'd like to upgrade the size of the pictures. I thought about, well, I could do 4x5, which is standard, easy to cut paper from 8x10 into 4x5 pieces. But if I'm going to be making portraits of people and giving them these prints, most people don't have frames that take 4x5 inch. And I thought, well, I could go to 5x7, but my existing box camera won't really take 5x7. It's too small. So I started thinking, you know what? 4x6 is a standard Photo Lab print size. You can get frames and mat boards really easy for 4x6. Why don't I upgrade the camera to a 4x6 format? And that means I'll build an entire new film holder assembly, new rods that the focusing runs on, and new trays for that. So this is the old film holder assembly that I used for the Afghan box camera. It is a square-ish kind of a frame that was cut out, and I basically had to cut 4 corner holes and then use a saw to cut out the opening. I had to put some little shims in here and these little side pieces. The way this works is the piece of plastic, I have a little notch up in the top here. There is a screw eye, and when you push the ground glass holder up against it, you can turn that screw eye and it keeps the film holder pressed up against where it should be. And then I have some gaffer's tape, just as little handles to pull it and open it. And you can see there's a little string that I've attached that keeps it horizontal when it opens, but it won't go any further and get into the developer. You don't want that to happen and make a big mess. And so the bottom of the ground glass is basically just taped on with some gaffer's tape. And when I say gaffer's tape, I actually mean real gaffer's tape, not the stuff that they claim is gaffer's tape. It isn't really. This stuff sticks really well. When you open up the film holder, you have this little ledge here that you can put a piece of photo paper in, and you're working by feel, of course. So I have to center the piece of paper on these guides. I basically put the bottom of the piece of paper in here and make sure I feel it between the 2 rails, and then I can close it up, and that'll push the paper up against there, lock it. So I'm using, on the old one, I was using these 3/8 inch aluminum rods, and one of them went up on the top corner and the other one went down on the side here. I originally had 4 holes drilled. I think I originally had it, the other rod was on the top, but somehow I moved it to the center on the right side. But I have these little brass pieces that I was using that helps the film holder to ride on those rods, and it was a really smooth operating film holder. It would slide back and forth real easy. This hole here was for the focusing rod. I had a screw going through it into the rod, and that's what I used to pull it back and forth to focus. So this is the old one. Again, this is a piece of like lucite or whatever plastic, and I've sanded down the front of it with a random orbital sander for the focusing side. So that's the old one. A little bit smaller than 4x5, not a standard film format. But the box itself, the box camera itself, is the same size as it's always been. And so what I'm doing here, I'm right in the middle of the process of upgrading this. So one of the things I've done is I've gone to 1/2-inch brass tubes. Okay, and I also wanted a way so that I could remove this if I needed to. The old system, you can't really see it, but back in here, I had these recessed holes cut, and the guide rods that I was using, let me get one of them for you. The guide rods were put in place when I built the box, and so I couldn't remove the guide rods once the box was built. So to get them out, I had to cut them. But this time what I'm using is pieces of wood. This is 3/4-inch poplar, and I've made a half-round, 1/2-inch diameter hole with a Forstner bit, and the rods just sit nicely on these little guides. I'm going to put a piece of tape over them when I put them in, when I finally seat them in place. So I have the block for the front two are drying, and the block for the back right one is drying, and then I still need to put the block in place for the left rear one right here. Okay, let me just lift this out and remove it, and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so the heart of this frame is these 2 side pieces made from 3/4-inch square poplar. I have 1/2-inch holes drilled. Actually, they're a little bit bigger than 1/2-inch because the bushing that I'm using to run these guide rods, I'm using a tube here that will ride a little bit larger in diameter. It has a 1/2-inch inside diameter, and so those 2 short little pieces will be glued into the side pieces right here, and then that enables the rod or the film holder frame to slide on these 2 rods nice and smoothly, I hope. So then the opening, the free opening in this frame, is a little bit higher than 6 inches and about 1/8 of an inch wider than 4 inches. So it gives me a little bit of room to put it in there and not have it be so tight. There's a little ledge down here. I'm going to be making a new ground glass view screen out of Lexan plastic, and it'll be taped in here and hinged back like the other one will. I don't really have room in this new one for a screw eye up here because this frame is a lot thinner. I don't have the clearance on the top of this that I had the old one because this is taller. So I'm going to use some little method on the side here that I'm going to have something that'll come in there and keep the ground glass pushed up against it. So this all needs to be painted black, of course, and I need to still make the ground glass piece of plastic and tape it in there. So with this back left piece, I'll be doing the final adjustments to the angle of this far rod so to make both rods parallel so that this thing will slide nice and smoothly. You have to have the 2 rods very parallel like that in order for it to move nice and smoothly. And then I'll have to attach the focusing rod onto this left hand piece here. So it makes the attachment. So this is my 4x6-inch template for my film, my photo paper. And of course 4x6 fits in this little holder pretty nicely. But for the tank itself, I want about a 1/2-inch clearance on the floor of the tank to easily get my finger around and get the 4x6-inch print out. So the inside dimensions of the tank have to be 5x7. And also, I don't want the tank walls to be tapered out, like angled out like that. Like a lot of the plastic Tupperware dishes you find, they sort of angle outwards, and it makes the footprint of the tank a lot bigger than it should be. So in this camera, I'm going to put a fixer tray here. It's going to have vertical sidewalls, and then next to it will be the developer tray right here, and then that'll leave all this room in front for a shallow paper safe or a paper safe on the left side. I haven't decided really which one I'm going to use, whether the left or the bottom, but basically for taking pictures, portraits, this focusing screen only needs to go out about halfway to get the distance to the lens. I'm using the 135 millimeter Fujinon lens, so it only needs to go out about a little bit more than that, maybe 200 millimeters or so to focus. So that will work fine. You notice there's not much clearance here on the bottom of the film holder because, again, I'm using a larger film size. So the tank's little trays will be a little shallower than my old ones, but again, this film holder doesn't need to go back much further than that, and so I think I have room for 2 of these trays, and it should be probably at least a 3/4 inch, maybe close to an inch of the height of the sidewalls of the tray. So at the hobby shop, I bought a sheet of copper that is 12 by 18. And right here, 12 by 18. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to make my own chemical trays. And the way I'm going to make the chemical trays is I'm going to cut out of this copper, I'm going to cut a rectangle that is like something like this, as I'm drawing live on camera. And these dotted lines here, this is a very crude drawing, but doing it freehand. Those dashed lines represent the bottom of the tray. It's 5 by 7 there. And then these are the side walls. And then I will fold up the side pieces to make a tray like so. And because this is copper, I was hoping originally to find some brass, but I couldn't find a sheet of brass big enough at the local stores. And so they'll fold up like that. And then on the inside, I'm going to solder these 4 corner joints with solder. That's how I'm going to seal it up and make it liquid tight. So it'll be a shallow tray, vertical sidewalls, and then I intend on primering and painting the inside and the out. Well, maybe I might leave the outside bare, but it will, because it's copper, it's going to tarnish. So I'll probably paint both inside and outside, primer it with some primer and then metal paint to get the finished tray like that. And that's going to be fun, a custom-sized tray. I don't have to rely upon a store-bought Tupperware dish. Now, as far as making prints, so what I've done up till now is I have used an extension arm connected to the bottom of the camera that holds a bracket out in front of the lens, in front of the camera, and I rephotograph the paper negative to make a positive. I could still do that, but there is another option, and this is one of the examples of where the Afghan box camera technology, it lies in kind of a hidden subculture in the non-English speaking world. Most of the adepts and aficionados of Afghan box cameras are in non-English speaking countries, so they know a lot of knowledge about how to make these things work. And what you have to do if you want to learn about Afghan box cameras is kind of read blog articles and watch videos and try to get translations into whatever language you speak if you need to understand the details of it. Well, I saw a video about a guy using an Afghan box camera out at Burning Man. And what he did is he took his negative after he developed it. He dried the negative, he put it back into the film holder bracket like this, and he sandwiched it with another piece of photo paper, and then he uses a battery-powered LED light source inside the camera to contact print. So I'm going to be trying that. I will have the front side, the emulsion side of the paper negative then facing to the rear of the developed negative. I'll put the other piece of photo paper facing with the emulsion side facing forward, sandwiched against it, and then I'll fold up the screen to sandwich the two together. And then I'm going to have a light source that flips up here just in back of the lens, and that's going to do my illumination for contact printing the image. And one of the real advantages of contact printing, of course, is you get really good sharpness, and you get a 1-to-1 size. So whatever size image the negative is, that's going to be the print size, which I want it to be 4:6 for the convenience of the person receiving the picture. They can easily display that image or whatever. So this is going to be internal to the box contact printing method instead of using the rephotographing method, which I could still use that. I still have that available as an option. But this gives me another alternative way to make prints, which is going to be exciting. Well, when I do finish the Afghan Box Camera project, I'll be certain to show you guys the results, take you on a tour, show you how it works, show you some example images. Well, I mentioned earlier about this little homemade book and this 3D printed ballpoint pen. I actually have two of them, this earlier generation model and this later one. So this started a few weeks ago with my friend Ethan. He decided to design some 3D printed pens, and this is one of his earlier models. This model, it uses a rifle bolt kind of an action, if you will, like that. There are 4 parts to the pen, basically. So you have the barrel of the pen is 3D printed. The back of it has internal threads. This cap is threaded, so it fits onto the back of the pen. And then you have this bolt, this orange bolt that is a little cylinder, and it slides in and out inside the pen barrel. And then you have the clip. In this particular model, the clip screws onto the bolt, and that becomes the action for opening and closing the pen. You supply the pen cartridge and the spring, and he printed this one for the Pentel Energel type of cartridge, which I really love, the Pentel Energel. That's about my favorite type of cartridge. So you have to have a different length based on the kinds of cartridges, like the Pilot G2, for instance, are a little bit shorter. The Pentel Energels are a different length from that. So then we get to this particular model. This is a little bit shorter version, and this uses a Pilot G2 cartridge. So he's changed the design of it here. The clip is fixed, and it's actually a little bit more beefier, thicker, very strong. It's screwed into the side of the pen body. There is a raised molding in the pen body here. You can see that little wedge up there where those two screws screw into. Again, the body is threaded in the back to accept the cap, and then the bolt has this screw that goes right into the side of the bolt, and it's a bolt action pen, of course, just like the other one, but you're using your thumb on that little bolt. Now, it's most convenient, this particular design is most convenient to be operated with your right hand. And so he's made a right and left-handed version of each one of these, the design. So this is the right-handed version. The left-handed version would just have the slot going the other way. But I really love this pen. I like the styling of it. I like the plastic parts, and I like the fact that you can print these out of different colors. So he presented me with a whole can full of different 3D printed pen parts in different colors, and I chose all these colors and put the pen together myself, which is really cool. And as you might be able to tell, I've been having a lot of fun with my 3D printed pen and my homemade notebook, drawing out sketches for my Afghan Box Camera upgrade, and it's been a lot of fun. So one more thing I wanted to discuss with you guys is I have made several photo books over the years, and I use Blurb as my self-publisher. And I recently made another order of some of my older books. One in particular was called TV Shop, and I thought it would be fun to, hey, let's open up the package and look at the book a little bit. All right, let's see if I can do this without cutting myself. I wonder if anybody's ever done that on an unboxing video on YouTube. Blood spurting everywhere. All right. I like the brown paper wrapping that this comes in. It's been a while since I've ordered any of my books from Blurb, and I don't remember them packaging it this way, but This is kind of cool, huh? All right. Don't want to cut the book, of course. Oh yes, I ordered a few of these. Oh yes. TV shop. Years ago, I worked at a TV repair shop, several of them in fact. And that's what this book is all about. TV repair shops represent an outdated industry where people once brought their televisions to be repaired, now made obsolete by cheap disposable imported electronics. Only a few of these independently owned businesses remain. And this is just a personal little essay of the television repair shop that I used to work at back in the late 1980s and early 1990s. I like this kind of photography. These kind of projects are a lot of fun. This is Florencio Rosales. He's retired now. He had been working at this same shop since the late 1970s, I think. And the colorful electronics and the parts bins and all the shelves of old chassis, because you can't get a lot of repair parts anymore these days. Yes, this was a fun project. I made a lot of fun images here, the grungy old soldering iron and troubleshooting a flat screen TV chassis there. Isn't that cool? Test equipment. It's a cool little book project. I enjoy it. Clip leads. Everybody needs clip leads. How about an old turntable, the kind that uses a rubber idler wheel to drive the platen? Well, I like printing out these books and getting a stock of them so I can give them away to people or sell them. I don't really make any money on them, really. I needed to order some more of these, a handful of them, so I could distribute them to people that haven't seen them. But I enjoy photo books. It's really a good way to display your work, to present it. I like them better, actually, than hanging photos on the wall, framing and matting and put it on the wall. I'd rather have a book, actually, and I think it's a really great medium. So I wrote here in the back, years ago I was a TV repairman. I learned the trade in the U.S. Navy as an IC electrician trained to service shipboard closed-circuit TV systems. After my enlistment, I returned to civilian life and worked for more than 12 years as a repairman in various shops around the Albuquerque area. My admiration runs deep for these highly skilled and underappreciated technicians who struggle to survive in this age of excess consumption and disposable electronics. I'm indebted to the staff and owner of Budget TV for their kindness in permitting me access to document their shop. This was in April of 2013. That was 7 years ago almost when I created this book. So anyways, I'll put a link down there if you're interested in buying one of these books off of Blurb. I have a couple other photo books as well. But anyways, hey, that was a little update. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm going to be finishing up this Afghan Box Camera update in the next week or two, and when I get results, I will share them with you. Well, if you have any comments or questions, drop them down below. I'd love to have a dialogue with you about all the stuff we talked about today. And as always, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye.